Welcome to Warhammer 40k 8th edition Battle Report 30. 2,000 points, Chaos Demons of Nurgle versus Dark Angels. This is the big rulebook, Maelstrom of War Mission, Contact Lost, and we will be rolling for a random map deployment today. Let's begin by taking a quick look around the board and at where the objective markers have been placed. Beginning with this 2 foot by 2 foot section, objective marker 2 is right here next to this ruin. In this middle 2 foot by 2 foot section, objective marker 6 is right here towards the middle. In this third 2 foot by 2 foot section, objective marker 4 is right over here next to this crater. Moving over to the other side of the board, on this 2 foot by 2 foot section, we have objective marker 5 next to this crater right here. In the middle 2 foot by 2 foot section, we have objective marker 3 right next to this crater. And finally, in this 2 foot by 2 foot section, we have objective marker 1 right here next to this ruin. And now we will roll for the random map deployment. And here's the roll. Getting a 4, which is Hammer and Anvil. So on a roll of a 1, 2, or a 3, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will begin deploying on the near side, and the Dark Angels will deploy on the far side. On a 4, 5, or 6, it'll be the opposite, so Chaos Demons of Nurgle on the far side, and Dark Angels on the near side. And here's the roll. Getting a 3, so the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will begin deploying on the near side, and the Dark Angels will deploy on the far side. On a roll of a 1, 2, or 3, Chaos Demons of Nurgle will begin to deploy first, and on a 4, 5, or 6, the Dark Angels will begin to deploy first. And here's the roll, getting a 5, and so the Dark Angels will begin to deploy first. We will be back after the deployment. The deployment is now finished. The Dark Angels began to deploy first, and they also finished deploying first, which means that they will go first unless the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are able to successfully seize the initiative. Let's take a quick look at where each army placed all of their units on the battlefield. Beginning with the Dark Angels deployment and going from right to left across their deployment line, we first have the squad of Ravenwing Black Knights. Behind them is a squad of Tactical Marines sitting on objective marker 1, the Ravenwing Talon Master sitting in the ruin, Land Raider Redeemer with Belial and the Deathwing Knights embarked inside, the first Nephilim Jet Fighter in the back, the second Nephilim Jet Fighter also in the back corner, the second squad of Tactical Marines sitting on objective marker 2, the Predator, and the third and final squad of Tactical Marines. Now going over to the Chaos Demons of Nurgle deployment, also going from right to left from the Dark Angels perspective, we have the first squad of Plague Bearers, the second squad of Plague Bearers sitting on objective marker 4, the first squad of Plague Drones, the first Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings, Great Unclean One armed with Doomsday Bell and Corruption, the Warlord Rodigus, the second squad of Plague Drones, the second Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings, the third and final squad of Plague Bearers, and finally, the Great Unclean One armed with Doomsday Bell and Plague Flail. So now we will roll to see if the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are able to successfully seize the initiative on a 6, and they fail to do so, rolling a 1. So let's go into Dark Angels, turn 1. Going into Dark Angels turn 1, a reminder that the Dark Angels have 8 command points available, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 9 command points available. At the beginning of the turn, since this is the big rulebook Maelstrom of War Mission, Contact Lost, the Dark Angels drew 1 new tactical objective card, and they drew Flawless Strategy. Score 1 victory point at the end of your turn if 1 or more friendly Deathwing units arrived as reinforcements using the Teleport Strike ability and were set up within 12 inches of any enemy units. If your units were also set up within 6 inches of a friendly Ravenwing unit, score D3 victory points instead. And that is impossible to get, as the Dark Angels have no reserves. So going into the movement phase, for Dark Angels turn 1, the Dark Angels are going to try something a little bit different this game, and they are going to let the Chaos Demons of Nurgle come to them in order to take advantage of being able to reroll hit rolls of 1 if they don't move, and in order to not be charged turn 1 by the Plague Drones. Even though this will mean that they won't be able to fire this turn, the Ravenwing Black Knights will remain still. This squad of Tactical Marines will also remain still. This Land Raider Redeemer is going to move up the board about an inch to get just within 24-inch range of Rodigus, and it will finish its movement right there. The Ravenwing Talonmaster is now going to move up to 16 inches over to the other side of the Land Raider to also get just within 24 inches of Rodigus, and he will finish his movement right here. This Tactical Marine squad will remain still. This Predator will also remain still. This squad of Tactical Marines sitting on Objective Marker 2 will also remain still. This Nephilim Jet Fighter is going to pivot up to 90 degrees to its left, and it will move up the board at least 20 inches but no more than 50. And it will finish its movement right there. Finally, the other Nephilim Jet Fighter will do the same thing, pivoting up to 90 degrees to its left and then moving up the board at least 20 inches but no more than 50. And it will finish its movement right there. Moving into the shooting phase, we will begin with the Plasma Cannon from this Tactical Marine squad, firing supercharged shots into the Warlord Rodigus. D3 supercharged shots, getting 1 shot, hitting on a 3, rerolling 1s, getting a hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on a 3. And it wounds. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which passes. This Land Raider, who is within 24 inches of Rodigus, is also within 24 inches of the squad of plague drones with the orange wings, and so the Land Raider Redeemer will fire its twin assault cannon into this squad of plague drones. 12 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 11 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Ravenwing Talonmaster, getting 9 wounds and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 10th wound. 10 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 4 and failing 6. 1 damage apiece, so 6 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 2 and failing 4. So 1 regular plague drone in the back will be killed off. This Nephilim Jet Fighter will fire everything that it has into this squad of plague drones, beginning with the 2 shots from the Black Sword missile launchers, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3, rerolling 1s, and failing to wound. 10 shots from the Avenger Megabolter, hitting on 3s, getting 8 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 wounds and 3 rerolls. And here's the 3 rerolls, getting only 1 more wound. 3 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 2. 1 damage apiece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So another regular plague drone will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. 6 shots from the twin heavy bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 5 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 wound and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 2nd wound. 2 5-up invulnerable saves, failing both. 1 damage apiece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So the regular plague drone will now fall from 3 wounds down to 2. The second Nephilim Jet Fighter is within range and can see, and so it will also fire everything that it has into this squad of plague drones. Starting with 2 shots from the Black Sword missile launchers, hitting on 3s, failing to hit. 10 shots from the Avenger Megabolter, hitting on 3s, getting 7 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s, thanks to the Ravenwing Talonmaster, getting 6 wounds and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 7th wound. 7 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 3 and failing 4. 1 damage piece, so 4 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and failing all 4. So the regular plague drone that is down to 2 wounds will lose its final 2 wounds and be killed off. And also the third and final regular plague drone will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 2. 6 shots from the twin heavy bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 wound and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 2nd wound. 2 5-up invulnerable saves, failing both. 1 damage piece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So this plague drone will fall from 2 wounds down to 1 left. This Ravenwing Talonmaster is not within 24-inch range of the plague drones, but he is within 36-inch range. So the Ravenwing Talonmaster will fire its twin assault cannon into Rodigus and its twin heavy bolter into the plague drones. 12 shots from the twin assault cannon into Rodigus, hitting on 3s, getting 7 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 wounds and a reroll. And here's the reroll, still failing to wound. 2 5-up invulnerable saves, failing both. 1 damage piece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and failing both of those as well. So the Warlord Rodigus will fall from 18 starting wounds down to 16. 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter into the Plague Drones, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 3 wounds. 3 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 2. 1 damage piece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and passing both. This Predator is going to fire everything that it has into that squad of Plague Drones because they are visible and they are within 48-inch range. Beginning with 2 shots from the last cannons, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 9 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 3 and fails to wound. 2 D3 Predator autocannon shots, getting 4 shots. Hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds. 2 5-up invulnerable saves, failing both. They are 3 damage apiece and the damage does not carry over, so we will have to resolve them one at a time. So strike number 1, 3 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and failing all 3. But all that will do is remove the final wound on the final regular Plague Drone, and then the damage from strike number 2, 3 5-up disgustingly resilient, and failing all 3 of those as well. So now the instrument will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 1. This plasma cannon is out of range of those Plague Drones, and so it will fire supercharged shots into this Great Unclean One armed with Corruption. D3 supercharged shots, getting 2 shots, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, failing to hit and getting a reroll. And here's the reroll, and it hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on a 3, and it wounds. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and it is 2 damage piece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient, and both of those fail as well. So now the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption will fall from 18 starting wounds down to 16, just like Rodigus. Finally, the plasma cannon from this Tactical Marine squad will fire supercharged shots into the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption. D3 shots, getting 3 shots, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 3 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds. 2 5-up invulnerable saves, failing both. 2 damage piece and supercharged, so 4 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and failing all 4. So the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption will fall from 16 wounds down to 12. Going into the Assault phase, there are no charges to declare, which means going into the Fight phase, there are no fights to resolve. However, going into the Morale phase, this squad of Plague Drones did lose 3 models this turn, and they have a leadership of 7. However, they are within 6 inches of a Greater Demon, and therefore can use the Greater Demon's leadership of 10, which means it is impossible to fail after only losing 3 models. However, since they do have a demonic icon, they will roll for their morale check, and on a roll of a 1, they will get a slain model back. And so here's the roll. Rolling a 6, and so they pass, and nothing happens. So taking a look at the tactical objective cards, the Dark Angels failed to complete Flawless Strategy, and so they will throw that one away. And so at the end of Dark Angels turn 1, we currently have a score of 0 victory points for the Dark Angels, and 0 victory points for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle. Going into Chaos Demons of Nurgle, turn 1, a reminder that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 9 command points available, and the Dark Angels have 8 command points available. So at the start of Chaos Demons of Nurgle, turn 1, they drew 1 new tactical objective card, and they drew Master the Warp. Score 1 victory point if you manifested or denied a psychic power during this turn. If you manifested or denied 3 or more psychic powers, score D3 victory points instead. Also at the beginning of the turn, we need to resolve reverberating summons from the Great Unclean One with Doomsday Bell onto the squad of Plague Drones that's down to 3 models. And so on a 4-up, which goes off. So the Plague Drones will get 1 slain model back. And so 1 slain regular Plague Drone will be brought back right here in unit coherency, up in front. So going into the movement phase for Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 1, we will begin with this squad of Plague Drones, and they will move up the board up to 10 inches. And they will finish their movement like so. Next, Rodigus will move up the board up to 7 inches, and he will also declare an advance. So here's his advance roll. getting 6 additional inches for up to 13 inches of total movement. And Rodriguez will finish his movement right here. Next, the Great Unclean One armed with Plague Flail will move up the board up to 7 inches, and he will also declare an advance. And here's the advance roll. Rolling 6 additional inches for up to 13 inches of total movement. And the Great Unclean One will finish its movement right there. Next, this Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings is going to move up the board up to 12 inches, and he will also declare an advance. And here's his advance roll, rolling 3 additional inches, getting 15 inches of total movement. And the Demon Prince of Nurgle will finish its movement right here. This squad of Plague Bearers is going to move up the board up to 5 inches in order to better hold objective marker 5. And they will finish their movement like so. This squad of Plague Drones is now going to move up the board up to 10 inches, and they will also declare an advance. And here's their advance roll, getting 6 additional inches, but getting to add 1 thanks to their instrument for 7 inches of advance, and that means up to 17 inches of total movement. And they will finish their movement right here, with this one in the back, sitting on objective marker 6. Next, this Great Unclean One, armed with Corruption, is going to move up the board up to 7 inches and will also declare an advance. And here's his advance roll, rolling 2 additional inches for up to 9 inches of total movement. And he will finish his movement right here. Next, this Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings is going to move up the board up to 12 inches, and he will also declare an advance. And here's his advance roll, rolling 6 additional inches for up to 18 inches of total movement. And the Demon Prince will finish its movement right here. Next, this squad of Plague Bearers will move up the board up to 5 inches, and they will also declare an advance. And here's their advance roll, rolling 4 additional inches for up to 9 inches of total movement. And they will finish their movement like so. Finally, this squad of Plague Bearers sitting on objective marker 4 will remain still. And now, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are going to use the stratagem Revolting Regeneration for 2 command points. Bring them from 9 down to 7. And this will be used on the squad of Plague Drones that had a model come back at the beginning of the turn. Use this stratagem at the end of your movement phase. Select one of your Nurgle demon units. One model in that unit regains D3 lost wounds. If there are no wounded models in the unit, and that unit has suffered any casualties, a single slain model from the unit is returned to play with 1 wound remaining. So D3 lost wounds will be returned to the instrument, and he will get 2 wounds back. So the instrument will go back up from 1 wound left to 3. Going into the Psychic phase, for Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 1, we will begin with this Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings attempting to manifest Fleshy Abundance onto this squad of Plague Drones. And Fleshy Abundance has a warp charge value of 5, and he gets it with an 8. And it will regenerate D3 lost wounds, however there is only 1 wounded model, which is the instrument, and he is only missing 1 wound, so he will simply get the 1 wound back. And so the instrument will return from 3 wounds back up to full health with 4 wounds. Rodriguez will now attempt to manifest Virulent Blessing onto the squad of 4 Plague Drones, and he will also attempt to manifest Smite onto the Nephilim Jet Fighter with white wings, since it is the closest enemy unit within the 18 inches and also visible. Beginning with Virulent Blessing, which has a warp charge value of 7, and it passes with an 8, so it will go off. And since that psychic test was passed with a 7 or more, thanks to Rodriguez's special ability Deluge of Nurgle, the closest enemy unit suffers a mortal wound, which will be this Nephilim Jet Fighter. But in order to potentially negate the effects of the mortal wound, the Dark Angels will use the stratagem, the Armor of Contempt, for 1 command point, bring them from 8 down to 7. Use this stratagem when a Dark Angel's vehicle from your army suffers a mortal wound. Roll a d6 for that mortal wound and each other mortal wound inflicted on this model for the rest of the phase. On a 5-up, that mortal wound is ignored. So on a 5-up, the mortal wound is ignored and is not. So the Nephilim Jet Fighter will fall from 10 starting wounds down to 9. And now for Smite, which has a warp charge value of 5, and it fails with a 4. But the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are going to use 1 command point for a command reroll, going from 7 down to 6 in order to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll, and it passes with a 5. So it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 3 mortal wounds. Thanks to the Armor of Contempt stratagem, however, 3 5-ups to potentially save, and failing all 3. So the Nephilim Jet Fighter will fall from 9 wounds down to 6. The Great Unclean One, armed with Plague Flail, will only be able to attempt to manifest Smite, as there are no enemy units within 7 inches, so he will attempt to manifest Smite onto the squad of Ravenwing Black Knights because they are the closest enemy unit within 18 inches and also visible. And Smite now needs a 6 to pass, and it passes with a 10. So D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 3 mortal wounds. And there is nothing that the Dark Angels can do about that, so one Ravenwing Black Knight is completely killed off, and a second Ravenwing Black Knight is reduced from 2 starting wounds down to 1. Now this Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings is going to attempt to manifest Smite onto the Nephilim Jet Fighter with white wings because it is the closest enemy unit within 18 inches and also visible. Smite now has a warp chart value of 7, and it passes with an 11. So because it passed with an 11, it will do D6 mortal wounds instead of D3, and it will do 4 mortal wounds. Thanks to the Armor of Contempt, the Nephilim Jet Fighter will have 4 or 5 ups to attempt to save, passing 1 but failing 3. So the Nephilim Jet Fighter will fall from 6 wounds down to 3 left. Finally, the Great Unclean One with Corruption will attempt to manifest Smite onto the Ravenwing Talon Master because it is actually the closest enemy unit within 18 inches and also visible. And Smite now is a warp chart value of 8, and it fails with a 6. Going into the shooting phase for Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 1, we will begin with Rodigus firing his streams of brackish filth into the Nephilim Jet Fighter with white wings because it is just within 7 inches. 2 D6 shots, getting 7 shots. Chaos Demons of Nurgle are going to use 1 command point going from 6 down to 5. Now that it's the shooting phase, to use a command reroll to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll, getting 12 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 12 hits. Strength 7 versus toughness 6 means wounding on 3s. Rerolling all fails. So getting 7 wounds and 5 rerolls. And here's the rerolls. Getting 4 more wounds for 11 wounds total. Normally this weapon does 1 damage apiece, however, the 6s, thanks to Locus of Virulence, will do 2 damage apiece instead of just 1. So we have 4 2 damage strikes and 7 1 damage strikes. Minus 3 AP, so beginning with the 7 6-up armor saves against the 1 damage attacks. And they all failed, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway. So that is 7 damage that goes through, which is way more than enough to finish off the Nephilim Jet Fighter. Does it crash and burn? And it does not, needing a 6. So the Nephilim Jet Fighter will lose its final 3 wounds and be killed off for first blood. Next, this one Plague Drone at the forefront is within 12 inches of the Ravenwing Black Knights, and so he will fire his Death's Heads into them. This squad of Plague Drones did not advance, so 2 shots hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to a Demon Prince nearby, getting 1 hit. Strength 4 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s, but getting to add 1 to wound rolls thanks to Virulent Blessing, and rolling a 6, so of course with both Virulent Blessing and Locus of Virulence taking effect, this will do 3 damage if it goes through instead of 1. Not that that actually matters because there is a wounded Ravenwing Black Knight with only 1 wound left, and there is no AP, so 1 3-up armor save, which passes. Finally in the shooting phase, this squad of Plague Drones will have the 3 models up front, because they are the only ones within 12-inch range, fire their Death's Heads into this squad of Tactical Marines sitting on objective marker 2. And they did advance, so 6 shots hitting on 5s, rerolling 1s thanks to a Demon Prince nearby, getting 3 hits and 2 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting 5 hits total. Strength 4 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 wound and 3 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting 3 wounds total. Locus of Virulence won't matter since the Tactical Marines are only 1 wound apiece, and no AP, but they are in a ruin, so 3 2-up armor saves, passing 2 and failing 1. And since that is going to be the last shooting attack in the shooting phase, the Dark Angels will use 1 command point for a command reroll to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll, getting another save. Going into the assault phase, this squad of Plague Drones is going to charge into the Land Raider. They are 9.5 inches away, which means they need a 10-inch charge, so subtracting 2 from the crater, but also adding 1 from the instrument means they need to roll an 11 or higher to make it in. However, this also means that the Flamestorm cannons are out of range and will not be able to overwatch. So 12 shots from the Twin Assault Cannon hitting on 6s, getting 2 hits. Strength 6 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting a wound and a reroll. And here's the reroll, still failing to wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails. Only 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient roll, which also fails. So the 1 regular Plague Drone up front will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. So here's the charge distance, rolling a 4, which will fail, and there's no point in re-rolling. which means going into the fight phase, there are no fights to resolve. Therefore, going into the morale phase, this squad of Ravenwing Black Knights did lose one model this turn. However, thanks to their special ability, Inner Circle, it is impossible for them to fail a morale check because they automatically pass. So now taking a look at the tactical objective cards, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle did successfully complete Master the Warp, and they manifested at least 3 psychic powers, which means they will get D3 victory points. And so here's the roll, and they roll a 5, which means they will get 3 victory points. And so at the end of Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 1, we currently have a score of 4 victory points for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle thanks to First Blood, and 0 victory points for the Dark Angels. Going into Dark Angels turn 2, a reminder that the Dark Angels have 6 command points available, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 5 command points available. At the beginning of Dark Angels turn 2, the Dark Angels are currently holding 2 objective markers, and since this is the Maelstrom of War mission Contact Lost, they will draw 2 new tactical objective cards because of that. And so they drew Defend Objective 3, score 2 victory points if you control Objective Marker 3 at the end of 2 consecutive turns, and Priority Orders Received. When this tactical objective is generated, immediately generate a bonus tactical objective. This does not count toward the number of active tactical objectives you currently have in play. Your Warlord is the only unit that can be used to achieve this bonus objective. They must be the only unit used to control an objective marker, the unit that destroys the last model in an enemy unit, and so on. If you achieve this, you score both the number of victory points stated on the bonus tactical objective and an additional 3 victory points if this tactical objective is discarded, so 2 is the bonus tactical objective. And objective marker 3 is this one right here in No Man's Land, currently being held by a Great Unclean One armed with Plague Flail. So going into the movement phase, for Dark Angels turn 2, the squad of Ravenwing Black Knights will remain still. This squad of Tactical Marines will also remain still. The Deathwing Knights and Belial will all disembark from this Land Raider, and they will all disembark like so. Now Belial will move up to 5 inches up the board, and he will finish his movement right here. Next, the Deathwing Knights will move up to 5 inches up the board, right to there. Next, the Land Raider Redeemer will move up to 5 inches up the board to stay right behind the Deathwing Knights, even though it does have a movement characteristic of up to 10 inches, and it will finish its movement right here. Next, this Nephilim Jet Fighter will move up the board at least 20 inches, but less than 50, and it will either pivot a little bit to its left or a little bit to its right in order to fit on the battlefield. And it will finish its movement right here, making sure to stay at least over an inch away from any enemy models. The Ravenwing Talon Master is now going to move up the board up to 16 inches to make sure that its aura for re-rolling wound rolls of 1 is in the best spot possible. And it will finish its movement right here. This Tactical Marine squad will remain still. This Predator will remain still. And finally, this Tactical Marine squad on Objective Marker 2 will also remain still. Going into the shooting phase, we will begin with the Land Raider Redeemer firing everything that it has into this squad of 4 Plague Drones. Beginning with the 2 Flamestorm Cannons, 2 D6 shots, getting 6 shots. And the Dark Angels are going to use a command point, going from 6 down to 5 for a command reroll in order to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll. Bring them up to 9 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 9 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Ravenwing Talon Master. Getting 7 wounds and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll. Getting an 8th wound. 8 5-up invulnerable saves. Failing all 8. And they are 2 damage apiece, which means they all have to be done separately because the damage cannot carry over from model to model. And a reminder that while the Sergeant, Demonic Icon, and Instrument are all at full 4 wounds, the 1 regular Plague Drone alive in the squad is down to 3. So, strike number 1, 2 5-up Disgustingly Resilient, failing both, bringing him down to 1 wound. Strike number 2, 2 5-ups, failing both, so all that will do is take the final wound off of the regular Plague Drone. Strike number 3, 2 5-ups, failing both, and that will go on to the Instrument. Strike number 4, 2 5-ups, failing both as well, so that will finish off the Instrument. Strike number 5, 2 5-ups, passing both. Strike number 6, 2 5-ups, passing 1 and failing 1, so the Sergeant will fall from 4 down to 1 wound. 4 down to 3 wounds. Strike number 7, 2 5-ups, passing 1, failing 1, so the Sergeant will fall from 3 down to 2. And strike number 8, 2 5-ups, passing 1 and failing 1, so the Sergeant will fall from 2 down to 1 wound left. So the regular Plague Drone right here is killed off. The instrument right here is killed off. And the sergeant right here is reduced from 4 starting wounds down to 1 left. 12 shots from the twin assault cannon, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to Belial. Getting 7 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll. Getting an 8th hit. Strength 6 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Talon Master. Getting 3 wounds and 3 rerolls. And here's the rerolls. Getting 6 wounds. 6, 5 up, invulnerable saves, passing 2 and failing 4. 1 damage piece, so these can all be rolled at the same time. 4, 5 up, disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 2 and failing 2. So that will finish off the 1 remaining wound on the sergeant, and the demonic icon will now fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. Belial will now fire his storm bolter in rapid fire range into the lone demonic icon. 4 shots, hitting on 2s, getting 3 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll. Getting a 4th hit. Strength 4 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 5s. Getting 4 wounds. 4, 5 up, invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 3. 1 damage piece, so 3, 5 up, disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 2 and failing 1. So the demonic icon will fall from 3 wounds down to 2. This tactical marine squad will fire next. The 4 bolt guns are all within 24-inch range, and so will fire a single shot into the lone demonic icon to try to finish off his 2 wounds, while the plasma cannon will fire supercharged shots into Rodriguez. Starting with 4 shots from the bolt guns, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s for staying still, and getting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, no rerolls since they are not within 6 inches of the Talon Master. Getting 1 wound. 1 5 up invulnerable save, which passes. Now D3 supercharged shots into Rodriguez, getting 1 shot, hitting on a 3, rerolling 1s for staying still, and here's the reroll, and still rolling a 1, so the plasma cannon kills itself. So this plasma cannon is killed off. Next, the Ravenwing Talon Master will fire everything that it has into the lone demonic icon. Beginning with the twin assault cannon, 12 shots, hitting on 3s, no rerolls because he's not within 6 inches of Belial. Getting 7 hits. Strength 6 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to himself. Getting 3 wounds and 2 rerolls. And here's the 2 rerolls. Getting 5 wounds. 5 up, invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 4. 1 damage piece, so 4 5 up, disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 3. So that will kill off and finish off this Plague Drone squad. This does mean that the twin heavy bolter on the Ravenwing Talon Master will go to waste. Next, this squad of Ravenwing Black Knights will fire supercharged shots from their plasma talons into Rodriguez, as they are all within 18-inch range. And the Dark Angels will use the stratagem Weapons from the Dark Age for 1 command point, bringing them from 5 down to 4. Use this stratagem just before Dark Angel's unit from your army attacks in your shooting phase. Increase the damage characteristic of that unit's plasma weapons by 1 until the end of the phase. For the purposes of the stratagem, a plasma weapon is any weapon profile whose name includes the word plasma. And because they are supercharged and it is 2 shots apiece, we will have to do each one of them separately in case 1 or more models are killed off. So we will begin with the sergeant over here on the far left, and then this will be regular biker number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So beginning with the sergeant, 2 shots hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Regular biker number 1, 2 hits. Regular biker number 2, 2 hits. Regular biker number 3, 2 hits. And finally, regular biker number 4, a hit and a reroll thanks to standing still. And here's the reroll, getting a 2nd hit. So all 10 shots hit. Strength 8 against Rodriguez's toughness of 7 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Talon Master. And that's pretty bad, getting only 3 hits and 4 rerolls. And here's the rerolls. Getting 6 wounds total. 6 5 up, invulnerable saves, passing 2 and failing 4. But thanks to being supercharged and the stratagem, they are 3 damage apiece, so 12 5 up, disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 3 and failing 9. So Rodriguez will fall from 16 wounds down to 7. Next, the Nephilim jet fighter will fire everything that it has into Rodriguez. So beginning with the 2 Black Sword missile launcher shots, hitting on 2s thanks to strafing run and getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus toughness 7 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Talon Master.
Master, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails. It is 2 damage, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So Radagast will fall from 7 wounds down to 6. 10 shots from the Avenger Megabolter, hitting on 2s. That's a really bad roll. Getting 6 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s. Getting 2 wounds and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll. Still failing to wound. 2 5-up invulnerable saves, failing both. 1 damage piece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So Radagast will fall from 6 wounds down to 5. Now for 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 2s, getting 5 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s, getting 3 wounds. 3 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 2. 1 damage piece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, failing both. So Radagast will fall from 5 wounds down to 3. This Predator is now going to fire everything that it has into Radagast. Starting with the 2 last cannon shots, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 3s. No rerolls, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails. It will do d6 damage, doing 4 damage. 4 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 3. So that will kill off the Warlord Radagast, and the Dark Angels achieve Slay the Warlord. However, this does mean that the Predator autocannon will go to waste. This Tactical Marine squad will have the 4 bolt guns fire at the squad of 6 plague drones. 3 of them, including the sergeant, are in rapid fire range. The one in the back will have to fire full range, while the plasma cannon will fire supercharged shots into the Great Unclean One armed with corruption. So starting with the 7 shots from the bolt guns, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s for staying still, getting 4 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll. Getting a 5th hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s. Getting 2 wounds, 2 definite fails, and 1 cocked dice. And here's the cocked dice. Getting a 3rd wound. 3 5-up invulnerable saves. Passing 2 and failing 1. 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, and passing that as well. D3 supercharged shots. Getting 3 shots. Hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds. 2 5-up invulnerable saves, failing both, and they are 2 damage piece, so 4 5-up disgustingly resilient, passing 1 but failing 3. So the Great Unclean One armed with corruption will fall from 12 wounds down to 9. This Tactical Marine squad will do the exact same thing, except this time only 2 of the bolt guns are in rapid fire range, so 2 will have to fire at full range. Starting with 6 shots from the bolt guns, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 5 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and only 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, which also fails. So 1 regular plague drone in the back here will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. D3 supercharged shots, getting 3 shots, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s for staying still, getting 2 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which passes. Going into the assault phase, we have 2 charges to declare, first of which will be Belial charging into the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings in front of him, and the second charge will be the Deathwing Knights charging into the same Demon Prince. We will begin with Belial. There is no Overwatch. So here's his charge range. Hitting 11 inches, so he will definitely make it in. And we'll just roll for the Deathwing Knights now as well, and they will get 7 inches. They will also be able to make it in. So they will finish their charge moves like so, with Belial over here and the Deathwing Knights wrapping around over there. So now moving into the fight phase, we will begin with the Deathwing Knights. And beginning with the Knight Master, 3 attacks with his Flail of the Unforgiven, hitting on 3s, re-rolling, getting 3 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6, wounding on 4s. No re-rolls, because they are no longer within 6 inches of the Ravenwing Talonmaster, getting only 1 wound. Minus 3 AP, so 1 5-up invulnerable save, which passes. And now 8 attacks from the regular Deathwing Knights and their Maces of Absolution, hitting on 3s, re-rolling, hitting 5 hits and 3 re-rolls. And here's the 3 re-rolls. Wow, still failing to hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s, hitting 4 wounds. Minus 2 AP, so 4 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 3. But the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will spend 1 command point, going from 5 down to 4 for a command re-roll reroll to reroll one of the fails. So here's the reroll, and it will pass the invulnerable save, so they only fail 2 out of the 4 5-up invulnerable saves, which is important because they are 3 damage apiece. So the 2 that go through still do total 6 damage, so 6 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 3 and failing 3. So the Demon Prince of Nurgle will fall from 8 starting wounds down to 5. And so now the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are going to use the stratagem counteroffensive for 2 command points, bring them from 4 down to 2. This stratagem is used right after an enemy unit that charges fought. Select one of your own eligible units and fight with the next. And so the Demon Prince of Nurgle will place all 7 of his attacks onto Belial. 7 attacks hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, but actually only hitting on 3s thanks to Belial's parrying blade special ability. Not that it mattered, hitting 7 hits. Strength 7 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 6 wounds, minus 2 AP, so 6 4-up invulnerable saves, passing 3 and failing 3. And they are 2 damage apiece, so that will be 6 damage, which will kill off Belial, which means that the Dark Angels will use 1 command point, going from 4 down to 3, for a command reroll to reroll one of the fails. And so here's the reroll, and it passes, so only taking 4 damage, which means that Belial will fall from 6 starting wounds down to 2. And now Belial will strike back. So Belial, 4 attacks with the Sword of Silence, hitting on 2s rerolling, getting 3 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, hitting 4 hits. This weapon always wounds on a 2. So looking for 2-ups and getting 3 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 3 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 2 and failing 1. And it does 2 damage apiece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, failing both. So the Demon Prince will fall from 5 wounds down to 3 left. And now the Dark Angels will use the stratagem Honor the Chapter for 3 command points, taking them from 3 down to 0 left. Use this stratagem at the end of any fight phase. Select a Dark Angels infantry or Dark Angels biker unit from your army. That unit can immediately fight for a second time, and this will be used on Belial to let him fight for a second time in order to try to get priority orders received. Scour the skies. So 4 attacks from Belial, hitting on 2s rerolling, hitting 3 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 4th hit. This weapon always wounds on a 2, hitting 4 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 4 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 2 and failing 2, but 2 damage apiece, so 4 5-up disgustingly resilient, passing 3 of them, only failing 1. So the Demon Prince will fall from 3 wounds down to 2 left. Going into the morale phase, this squad of tactical marines lost its own plasma cannon this turn. However, the sergeant has leadership of 8, and therefore it's impossible for them to fail after only losing 1 model. So, taking a look at the tactical objective cards, the Dark Angels failed to defend Objective 3, and they also failed priority orders received, Scour the Skies, and at this point they will throw Defend Objective 3 away.
And so at the end of Dark Angels turn 2, we currently have a score of 1 victory point for the Dark Angels, thanks to Slay the Warlord, and 4 victory points for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle. Going into Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 2, a reminder that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 2 command points available, and the Dark Angels have 0 command points available.
So at the beginning of Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 2, Chaos Demons of Nurgle are currently holding 4 objective markers, which means they get to draw 4 new tactical objective cards. And so they drew Hold the Line, score 1 victory point if you have at least 3 units completely within your deployment zone and your opponent has no models within your deployment zone at the end of your turn. This objective cannot be achieved on your first turn. Defend Objective 6, score 2 victory points if you control Objective Marker 6 at the end of 2 consecutive turns. Witch Hunter, score 1 victory point if at least 1 enemy Psyker was destroyed during this turn. And Defend Objective 1, score 2 victory points if you control Objective Marker 1 at the end of 2 consecutive turns. And Objective Marker 6 is right underneath the base of this Plague Drone right here, the one that is down to 3 wounds. And Objective Marker 1 is this one right here, currently being held by a squad of tactical marines. So going into the movement phase, we will start with this squad of 6 plague drones, who will move up the board up to 10 inches. And they will finish their movement like so. This squad of plague bearers is now going to move up the board up to 5 inches, and they will also declare an advance. And here's their advance roll, rolling 5 additional inches for up to 10 inches of total movement. And they will finish their movement like so, now holding onto Objective Marker 6. This squad of plague bearers will remain still. fall. This Great Unclean One, now that he's down to 9 wounds, will move up to 5 inches up the board, and he will finish his movement right here. This Demon Prince of Nurgle will remain locked in combat. This squad of Plague Bearers sitting on objective marker 5 will remain still. This Great Unclean One is going to move up the board up to 7 inches, and the Great Unclean One will finish its movement right there, over an inch away from any enemy models. Finally, this Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings is going to move up to 12 inches up the board, and he will finish his movement right here, making sure to stay over an inch away from any enemy models. And so the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are now going to use the stratagem Revolting Regeneration for 2 command points, bringing them from 2 down to 0. Use this stratagem at the end of your movement phase. Select one of your Nurgle demon units. One model in the unit regains D3 lost wounds. If there are no wounded models in the unit and that unit has suffered any casualties, a single slain model from the unit is returned to play with 1 wound remaining. And this will be used on the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption. So D3 lost wounds back, getting just 1 wound back. So the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption will be brought back up from 9 wounds to 10, and this will mean that it is now back to its highest tier on its damage chart. Going into the Psychic phase, we will begin with the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings, who is locked in combat, attempting to manifest Smite onto Belial. And Smite has a warp charge value of 5. And it passes with a 7. D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 2 mortal wounds. So Belial will lose his last 2 wounds and be killed off for Slay the Warlord. Next, this Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings will attempt to manifest Smite onto the Nephilim Jet Fighter. And Smite now has a warp charge value of 6, and it fails with a 5. Next, this Great Unclean One will attempt to manifest Smite onto the Nephilim Jet Fighter, and then he will also attempt to manifest Nurgle's Rot, which will affect all non-Nurgle units within 7 inches. Beginning with Smite, which now has a warp charge value of 7, and it passes with an 8. D3 mortal wounds, and it will do just 1 mortal wound. So the Nephilim Jet Fighter will fall from 10 starting wounds down to 9. Now for Nurgle's Rot, which also has a warp charge value of 7 and fails with a 5. Finally, in the Psychic phase, the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption will attempt to manifest Smite and Stream of Corruption onto the squad of Deathwing Knights. Smite now has a warp charge value of 8 and it fails with a 4. Stream of Corruption has a warp charge value of 5, and it fails with a 3. Going into the shooting phase for Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 2, we will begin with the Great Unclean One armed with Plague Flail, firing his Plague Flail into the Nephilim Jet Fighter. 3 shots hitting on 4s thanks to the Jet Fighter rerolling 1s and getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 2 6-up armor saves, failing both, and they are 2 damage apiece, for 4 damage total. So the Nephilim Jet Fighter will fall from 9 wounds down to 5. This squad of Plague Drones is going to fire all of their Death's Heads into this squad of Tactical Marines, the one that is not sitting on the objective marker. 12 shots with the Death's Heads, hitting on 4s, getting 9 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 5 wounds. No AP, so 5 3-up armor saves, passing 4 and failing 1. So 1 regular Tactical Marine will be killed off. Going into the assault phase, we have multiple charges to declare, first of which is this squad of Plague Drones will be declaring a multi-charge onto both of the Tactical Marine squads and the Predator right in front of them. The primary target will be the Predator, since it's right in the middle, and at least 1 model is within 2 inches, so they are guaranteed the charge. Next will be this Great Unclean One, declaring a charge onto the Deathwing Knights. This Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings will declare a charge onto the Nephilim Jet Fighter. This Great Unclean One is going to declare a multi-charge onto both the Ravenwing Talon Master and the Ravenwing Black Knights, with the Ravenwing Talon Master being the primary target. And so we will begin with this Great Unclean One. Starting with the Overwatch from the Ravenwing Talon Master, 12 shots with the Twin Assault Cannon hitting on 6s, getting 2 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s, and getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and it's 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, and failing that as well. So the Great Unclean One will fall from 18 starting wounds down to 17. 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 6s, and failing to hit. Now for the Overwatch from the 5 Ravenwing Black Knights, 2 shots apiece with their Plasma Talons, and they will be firing supercharged shots. They will get to reroll hit rolls of 1, since they stayed still in their previous movement phase. So just like in the Dark Angel's turn, when we resolve their shooting attacks in the shooting phase, we will begin with the Sergeant and then go down the line with regular biker number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So starting with the Sergeant, 2 shots hitting on 6s, failing to hit. Regular biker number 1, failing to hit. Biker number 2, failing to hit and a reroll. And here's the reroll, failing to hit. Biker number 3, failing to hit, and regular biker number 4, failing to hit and a reroll. And here's the reroll, failing to hit. So the sergeant and bikers 1 through 4 all failed to hit, but none of them were killed off from their own attacks. So now the charge range for the Great Unclean One. Rolling 9 inches. So the Great Unclean One is now locked in combat with both. Next, we will do this Demon Prince of Nurgle charging into the Nephilim Jet Fighter. Overwatch from the Nephilim Jet Fighter, of course. 2 shots from the Black Sword missile launchers, hitting on 6s, getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 2 5-up invulnerable saves, passing both. 10 shots from the Avenger Mega Bolter, hitting on 6s, failing to hit. And 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 6s, getting 1 hit. Strength 5 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 5, rerolling 1s, getting a wound. Minus 1 AP, so 1 4-up armor save, which fails, and 1 damage, so 1 5-up Disgusting Resilient, and failing that as well. So the Demon Prince will fall from 8 wounds down to 7. Now for charge range, getting 8 inches, more than enough. And he will be locked in combat like so. Now for the charge from this Great Unclean One onto the Deathwing Knights. No Overwatch, so just the charge range, getting 5 inches. And the Great Unclean One is now locked in combat. Finally, we will resolve the charge from the Plague Drones, starting with the Overwatch from the 4-man Tactical Marine Squad. First, the 2 regular bolt guns at rapid fire range, hitting on 6s, rerolling 1s thanks to standing still. And here's the 2 rerolls, all fail to hit. The Sergeant will throw a crack grenade, hitting on a 6, and it fails to hit. Plasma Cannon will fire D3 supercharged shots, getting 2 shots, hitting on 6s, rerolling 1s, failing to hit. Now the Predator will fire, starting with 2 last cannon shots, hitting on 6s, getting 2 hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and it will do 1 d6 damage, and it does 1 damage. 1 5-up Disgusting Resilient, which fails. So this Plague Drone in the back will fall from 3 wounds down to 2. 2 d3 shots from the Predator Autocannon, getting 6 shots. Hitting on 6s, no rerolls, getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and it will do 3 damage. So 3 5-up Disgusting Resilient, passing 1 and failing 2. So that will kill off this 1 regular Plague Drone in the back who is down to 2 wounds. Now for the Tactical Marine Squad in the Ruin, 3 regular bolt guns in rapid fire range, 6 shots, hitting on 6s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 reroll, and here's the reroll, getting a 6, so 1 hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 5 and failing to wound. Sergeant will throw a crack grenade, hitting on a 6, failing to hit, and the Plasma Cannon will fire D3 supercharged shots, getting 1 shot, hitting on a 6, and it fails to hit. Charge range from the Plague Drones, getting 9 inches. And they will finish their charge like so. And we do have to go back for a moment to both of the Great Unclean Ones and resolve their Crushing Bulk. Crushing Bulk states, roll a d6 at the end of your charge phase. If this model made a successful charge during that phase, on a 4-up, you can select 1 enemy unit within 1 inch to suffer a mortal wound. So starting with the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption on a 4-up, and it will go off, and it will have to go on to the Deathwing Knights, as he is not within an inch of any other units. So the 1 Deathwing Knight on the end, this one right here, will go from 2 starting wounds down to 1. Now for the other Great Unclean One, on a 4-up, and he fails. So going into the fight phase, we will begin with the Great Unclean One armed with Plague Flail and Doomsday Bell, and he will begin by attacking the Ravenwing Talonmaster. 5 attacks with the Doomsday Bell, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince, getting 4 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting 5 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s, getting 3 wounds, but one of them is a 6, which will activate Locus of Violence, which will add 1 to the damage. Minus 1 AP, so 1 4-up armor save against the wound roll of a 6, and fails to stop it, so that will be D3 plus 1 damage, and then 2 4-up armor saves against the normal wound rolls, passing both of them. So D3 plus 1 damage, and it will do 4 damage total, getting 3 from the D3. So the Ravenwing Talonmaster will fall from 6 starting wounds down to 2. Now for the Great Unclean One's Attendants, Claws, and Teeth, which will do an additional D6 attacks, getting 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, getting 6 hits of course. Strength 2 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 6s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 wounds, 3 definite fails, and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, still failing to wound. However, thanks to Locus of Virulence, those wound rolls of 6 are 2 damage apiece instead of 1, so if either one of these fails the armor save, the Ravenwing Talonmaster will be killed off. No AP, so 2 3-up armor saves, and of course failing 1, and no command points for a reroll. So the Ravenwing Talonmaster will lose its final 2 wounds and be killed off. So the Great Unclean One will now be able to consolidate up to 3 inches as long as he ends up closer to the nearest enemy unit. However, unfortunately for the Dark Angels, the Land Raider Redeemer is 3.5 inches away, which means that the Great Unclean One will consolidate in such a way so that he ends up closer to the Ravenwing Black Knights, but also consolidates into combat with the Land Raider Redeemer. So the Great Unclean One is now in base to base with the Ravenwing Black Knights, and he is now locked in combat with the Land Raider Redeemer. Now we will resolve the attacks from this Demon Prince of Nurgle onto the Nephilim Jet Fighter. 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, thanks to himself, getting 6 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 7th hit. Strength 7 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s. Wow, that's a bad roll. Getting only 2 wounds. Minus 2 AP, so 2 5-up armor saves, failing both. So the Nephilim Jet Fighter will survive, going from 5 wounds down to 1 left. Now we will resolve this Great Unclean One armed with Corruption onto the Deathwing Knights. Now that he's back up to 10 wounds, he will have 5 attacks base with Corruption, hitting on 2s, getting 5 hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 4, thanks to Corruption, means wounding on 2s, rerolling, getting 5 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 5. 3-up invulnerable saves, passing 4 and failing 1. And it does D3 damage, but that doesn't matter because there is a wounded model in the Deathwing unit. So this regular Deathwing Knight will lose its final wound and be killed off. And now for D6 attacks from the Attendant's Claws and Teeth, getting 2 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, thanks to the Demon Prince nearby, getting 2 hits. Strength 2 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 6s, rerolling 1s, getting a wound. If this goes through, it will do 2 damage instead of 1, thanks to Locus of Virulence, but no AP, so 1 2-up armor save, which passes. And now we will resolve the attacks from these Plague Drones onto the various units. This Plague Drone will place his attacks onto this Tactical Marine Squad. This Plague Drone will place his attacks onto the Predator, while the Instrument, Icon, and Sergeant all place their attacks onto this Tactical Marine Squad. So we will start with the 3 models attacking the Tactical Marine Squad in the Ruin. So 4 attacks from the Plague Swords, hitting on 4s, no rerolls, getting 1 hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling everything, getting a wound. No AP, so 1 3-up armor save, which passes. Now 12 attacks from the Prehensile Proboscis, hitting on 4s, getting 7 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling, getting 4 wounds and 3 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting 1 more wound. No AP, so 5 3-up armor saves, passing 4 and failing 1. So 1 regular bolt gun will go down. Now for the 1 regular Plague Drone onto the Predator, 1 attack with the Plague Sword, hitting on a 4 and it fails to hit. 4 attacks from the Prehensile Proboscis, hitting on 4s, getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, rerolling everything, getting all rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting 2 wounds. No AP, so 2 3-up armor saves, failing both, of course, and they are 2 damage. So that's 4 damage taken. So the Predator will fall from 11 starting wounds down to 7. And now for the 1 regular Plague Drone onto the squad of 4 Tactical Marines off on the edge. 1 Plague Sword attack, hitting on a 4, which hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling, getting a wound. No AP, so 1 3-up armor save, which passes. 4 attacks from the Prehensile Proboscis, hitting on 4s, getting 2 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling, getting 2 wounds. No AP, so 2 3-up armor saves, passing both. And now for units that did not charge, beginning with Nurgle, thanks to it being their turn. Chaos Demons of Nurgle only have 1 unit that needs to attack left, which is this Demon Prince, so we will resolve them against the Deathwing Knights. 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. Thank goodness for that, getting 4 hits and 3 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting all 7 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 4 wounds. Minus 2 AP, and Locus of Violence doesn't matter, because they're already 2 damage apiece. So minus 2 AP means 4, 3 up invulnerable saves, passing all 4. So now this Great Unclean One will consolidate closer to the Deathwing Knights. So now we will resolve the Deathwing Knights onto the Chaos Demons of Nurgle. Beginning with the Knight Master, 3 attacks with the Flail of the Unforgiven, hitting on 3s. 1 hit, 1 miss, and 1 cocked dice. And here's the cocked dice, failing to hit, and no rerolls because Belial is no longer on the battlefield. And the Knight Master is attacking the Demon Prince of Nurgle because that's the only model that he can attack. So Strength 6 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 4s. And it wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails. 2 damage apiece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilience, and failing both. So that will kill off the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings, because he is only down to 2 wounds. But because they cannot pile in anymore, now that they've already begun their attack, only 2 of the regular Deathwing Knights out of 3 will be able to place attacks onto the Great Unclean One. 4 attacks with their Maces of Absolution, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 3s, getting 4 wounds. 4 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 2 and failing 2. And they are 3 damage apiece, so 6 5-up disgustingly resilience, passing 3 and failing 3. So the Great Unclean One, armed with Corruption, will fall from 10 wounds down to 7, and now the Deathwing Knights will consolidate in. And so next turn they will all be able to fight. Next we will resolve the Nephilim Jet Fighter, who is down to 1 wound, against the Demon Prince. 3 attacks, hitting on 6s, failing to hit. Next, we will resolve the Land Raider Redeemer against the Great Unclean One. 6 attacks, hitting on 6s, failing to hit. Now the Ravenwing Black Knights will pile in against the Great Unclean One, and now they will launch their attack. 11 attacks with Corvus Hammers onto the Great Unclean One, hitting on 3s, getting 8 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, getting 2 wounds. 1 of them will be 1 damage and 1 of them will be D3. So 5-up invulnerable save against the D3 damage, which passes. 5-up invulnerable save against the 1 damage, which fails. So 1 5-up disgusting resilient, and that passes. So now the tactical marines on this ruin will pile in, and they are now all close enough to be able to fight. But we will start with this tactical marine squad against the plague drones. 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, no rerolls, getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s and failing to wound. The other tactical marine squad in the ruin will now do the exact same thing. 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, getting only 2 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s and failing to wound once again. And now 3 attacks from the Predator, hitting on 6s and failing to hit. So going into the morale phase, this squad of Deathwing Knights lost 1 model this turn. However, thanks to Inner Circle, they automatically pass morale checks. Both of these tactical marine squads lost 1 model this turn. However, both squads still have their sergeants, who have a leadership of 8, and so it's impossible to fail after only losing 1 model. This squad of Plague Drones lost 1 model this turn, and they have a leadership of 7, so it's impossible for them to fail after only losing 1 model. However, thanks to their demonic icon, if they roll a 1 for their morale check, they can get a slain model back. And so here's their roll, and they roll 4, so they pass and nothing happens. So taking a look at the tactical objective cards, they failed to complete Hold the Line. They are now 1 turn into defending objective 6. They failed to complete Witch Hunter, and they failed to begin to defend objective 1. And because the Dark Angels have no Psychers, they will throw Witch Hunter away.
And so at the end of Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 2, we currently have a score of 5 victory points for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle, thanks to Slay the Warlord, and 1 victory point for the Dark Angels. Going into Dark Angels turn 3, a reminder that the Dark Angels have 0 command points available, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle also have 0 command points available.
A reminder that the Dark Angels held on to the tactical objective card Priority Orders Received Scour the Skies from the previous turn, although that is now impossible to achieve since Belial has been killed. And the Dark Angels are still holding 2 objective markers, so they get to draw 2 new ones as well, and they drew Area Denial. Score 1 victory point if there are no enemy models within 6 inches of the center of of the battlefield at the end of your turn. If there are no enemy models within 12 inches of the center of the battlefield at the end of your turn, score D3 victory points instead. And Blood and Guts, score 1 victory point if an enemy unit was destroyed during the fight phase of this turn. If 3 or more enemy units were destroyed during the fight phase of this turn, score D3 victory points instead. And so at this point, the Dark Angels are going to concede the game. It's kind of early, but there's not really any more point in playing this one out, as the Dark Angels have been effectively nerfed, and the victory is just going to start running away in Nurgle's favor. So because of this, Chaos Demons of Nurgle will achieve line breaker thanks to a couple of these plague drones being at least partially within the Dark Angels deployment zone, which means we will have a final score of 6 victory points for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle and 1 victory point for the Dark Angels, with a major victory for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle thanks to a Dark Angels concession. And so now that the game is over, I can quickly go over 1 or 2 of my final thoughts on this particular game. First and foremost, of course, is the major reason for concession, and I briefly mentioned it when the Dark Angels conceded, but the Dark Angels are on the ropes, and they don't really have the ability to fight back effectively anymore. Thanks to this Plague Drone squad successfully charging in to the 2 Tactical Marine squads and the Predator over here, none of those squads will be able to shoot this turn, because if they fall back, they then simply can't do anything. But if they stay locked in combat, they will not really be able to do much to the Plague Drones. We've seen throughout this game and throughout other games, of course, how resilient Plague Drones are. It takes a lot of firepower to bring down even a single Plague Drone, and a bunch of Tactical Marines with no close combat weapons and a Predator that can only hit on 6s are not going to be able to do what needs to be done. So this entire flank is lost to the Dark Angels at this point. Because of course, if those Tactical Marines in the Ruin fall back, they will then no longer be holding Objective Marker 2, and instead it will be the Plague Drones that will be holding that, which means that the Dark Angels won't be able to get any more tactical objective cards from that objective marker. And that's a problem, because while Chaos Demons of Nurgle are currently holding 3, since the one Great Unclean One did move off of Objective Marker 3 in order to engage the Dark Angels, they're still holding 3 right now, and they have 3 active, so they can't draw more than 3 new ones next turn anyways, but the Dark Angels are only holding 2, and so if they fall back from either one or both, their ability to draw new objective cards and gain victory points is severely diminished. So this flank is essentially lost, because they are all engaged and won't really be able to do much, other than slowly die off. A Nephilim jet fighter with 1 wound left is not going to be able to do anything, and in fact, because it's down to 1 wound, it can only move 20 inches. It has to move at least 20, but it can only move 20, so it has to move 20 inches every single turn. Problem is, though, the Demon Prince, who is locked in combat, can follow it 12 inches and then just throw a smite at it, and only 1 smite has to go off to finish off the Nephilim jet fighter. So this Nephilim jet fighter is essentially as good as dead, and this flank is almost as bad as the other one, because the Land Raider Redeemer and the Ravenwing Black Knights are both locked in combat with the Great Unclean One. The Great Unclean One is vastly superior to either of those 2 Dark Angels units in close combat by a lot, and if either or both of them fall back, they can't shoot. And so essentially this flank has been completely nerfed, essentially since the 1 Tactical Marine squad over on this side, while they're not locked in combat, they lost their plasma cannon earlier in the game. The only bright spot for the Dark Angels is that this squad of Deathwing Knights has not been killed off yet, but the problem is they're a little bit slow. They can only move up to 5 inches. They're still locked in combat with the Great Unclean One, and the problem is the Deathwing Knights are not going to be able to win the game on their own. They need help and assistance from the other units, and they're not going to be able to get it. So at this point, Nurgle is about a turn away from running away with the victory in terms of victory points. There is no way for the Dark Angels to table Nurgle, and there's no real way for the Dark Angels to catch up in terms of victory points, because they're only holding 2 objective markers, and that might not last much longer, depending on who stays locked in combat. So at this point, there's no point in playing out the rest of the game, unless we want to watch a slow, painful death, and I certainly don't. So unfortunately, it's a little earlier than I would normally like in a game to declare a concession, but at this point, we might as well get on with our lives and move on to the next game. So we have a major victory thanks to a Dark Angels concession for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle, with a final score of 6-1 in terms of victory points. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next one.